Welcome to Fortress of Faith with Tom Wallace, calling North America to repentance and revival.
Well, we're back once again at the corner of truth and courage. You're listening to Fortress of Faith. This is Tom Wallace. Well, it's Friday, and on Friday, sometimes we cut into some of the news and issues that's going on around the world. I've been talking about some of the news this week already, but I want to get into other things that you're not getting on your general news sources. And also, we want to bring your attention to Islamic terrorism. Why? Because I believe, as I've been saying now for over a decade on the radio, I came off the foreign field back to my home country to warn my countrymen of what I believe is God's judgment. I'll say it again. We cannot expect to continue in our national sins and God to just bless us because we're mighty America. No, we're not too big to fail. And I believe God has the capability and the right to take us out, to bring us to our knees, to wound us deeply for our national sin. How did God judge Israel? You look at that and you find out these are the tools that God uses when he judges nations. The Bible teaches us in the Old Testament, especially in Jeremiah, it made it very clear. Yeah, he had a lot to say about Israel and he judged them, but he has every right to judge every other nation too, especially those who know better. And we knew better. We raise these issues for that reason so that we would start fearing God. And some of the stuff we're going to talk about is going on in Europe. But I want to talk first here in the United States. I've been talking, last couple of days about the attack that Israel had done on Hezbollah, a mastermind attack. I mean, if you're fighting your enemy, this is going to go down in the books of one of the most ingenious piece of tradecraft of taking out some of your key people, not necessarily murdering them, killing them in war, but injuring them. And sometimes that's better than killing. They say, on the front lines, I'm not a guy from the military, but, warcraft and all that stuff there intrigues me to some extent. I read a lot of, thrillers and stuff, and I like war stories. And to injure someone takes two people off the line, maybe three people off the line, and ties up their resources there of healing them, bringing them back. It's a strategy to win against your enemy. Well, Israel, over the last few days, has injured over 3,000 Hezbollah soldiers, and these were people who were highly connected or these are some of their leaders in the group. They were wearing pagers, and Israel had planted, before they arrived in the country, explosives. Now, here's the thing. The Biden-Harris regime immediately leaked the details of the Israel pager bombs, this operation, to the press. I mean, they got classified information, tradecraft information, one of the most ingenious things that we've ever seen in warfare done. And the United States betrays Israel by leaking the information of how Israel did it. I mean, that's stuff that you don't want necessarily revealed. But thank you, Biden-Harris, for, I say that with jest, of betraying Israel's trust. If you want to stay in the loop, you can't hurt your ally by stabbing them in the back. Okay, let's continue on news here in the United States. JetBlue, the airline, has removed the name of Israel from the maps of their in-flight maps. They have removed that, and instead of it calling Israel, they simply plaster Palestine over that. Now, this is one of my pet peeves, because I'll hear preachers refer to the land, the Holy Land, the ancestral land of the Jews, and call it Palestine. If you have a Bible, by the way, that has a map in the back, and they do this so many times, these Bible maps refer to Israel in that area as Palestine. There's never been a land or country of Palestine. Now, there were the Philistines who lived in the Gaza area and a small enclave of Philistines up to the north, up in Lebanon. And Joel speaks of that and called it Palestine. That's where that word Palestine, referring to the Philistines enclave up there. But the Philistines, as a people, were utterly annihilated by the Babylonians. They were removed from the face of the earth by the Babylonians. There are no more Philistines. But the land there didn't ever belong, except for maybe 5 cities there in Gaza, to the Philistines. But to call Jerusalem and the rest of Israel Palestine, we're insulting God and God's blessing to the Jewish nation when we do that. Well, Rashida Tlaib, the congresswoman from Michigan, from the Detroit area, from that constituency, has announced she will not vote or endorse Kamala Harris for president because she feels she's supporting Israel too much. And even though they're stabbing Israel in the back, she's not doing enough for the Palestinians. And so therefore, Rashida Tlaib is not going to vote for her. That coalition of the, what do they call it, the squad, I think 2 of their 5-member coalition in Congress didn't get reelected. They didn't get through their primaries. And another one may not win their reelection in the November voting. We'll see. Okay, Al-Qaeda is calling for the third 9/11. They're saying, stop your protests. Thank you. All what you're doing, protesting in Israel, in America, for Palestine, free Palestine. Instead of that, we need a jihad. We need a real war. We need a new 9/11. And so Al-Qaeda is saying, hey, let's get to the real stuff. Let's start killing people in America again. Well, I want to draw our attention up to Canada. I didn't know it, but I was sitting next to Ezra Levant a number of years back. We were in Washington, D.C., and I was attending a meeting, and I knew Ezra was going to be speaking a little later, and I had been talking about his case back when he was fighting the Canadian government. He was being sued by a Muslim simply for doing the work of a journalist and printing the Danish cartoons. You know that story, the Danish cartoons? This was, a long time back now. And there was a real story to be told. The Danish cartoons wasn't really that violent, wasn't that, offensive. And even the Danish Muslims couldn't get the riots in the streets and mayhem and stuff. And so a couple of clerics went to the Middle East and redrew or, offered other things, suggesting that this is what the Danish people had printed. And the Danish newspaper over there was simply giving an exercise of freedom of speech. And so, of course, that all got blown out of proportion. Here in America, they were even afraid to reprint those pictures. Well, Justin Trudeau did so and was sued by the Canadian government. And I remember all that stuff there. And I was in Washington, D.C., and I was at a meeting. I knew he was going to be speaking. I'd been covering his story. But he and I were sitting next to each other, and I didn't know it. And we were talking on a number of different things. And then he gets up to go speak. I'm like, man, I was talking to Ezra. I didn't know I was doing that. Anyhow, Ezra's group, he used to be with Sun Media, I think it was, in Canada. And, of course, that all went south, sadly. But he started Rebel News, and the term rebel wasn't really, is kind of a jestful saying, we're if you speak a conservative voice in Canada, you're considered a rebel, sadly. And so he started this news organization. Well, they just lost a court case. A federal court in Canada just upheld an atrocious ruling by Justin Trudeau's hand-picked censorship committee denying Rebel News of its license to operate as a news journalist organization. So here in Canada, unless you agree with what Justin Trudeau's committee says is newsworthy, if you kind of step outside of those guidelines, which all this was really designed to take down Ezra Levant and his news organization, if you're not in agreement with what they think should be newsworthy, we're going to cut your license and we're going to kick you out. And now it cost him over $40,000 to $177,000, I guess it's Canadian dollars, to fight his case. And now they've got to appeal, and they feel they've got a strong case to appeal, but that's going to cost other hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's exactly what the government wants to do. They want to burn their resources. It's called lawfare, to put them out and to destroy the organization through the courts and to keep them from doing what they're doing. It's shutting down free speech. Canada, and I don't know, we have a lot of Canadian listeners there. You cannot remain silent. Edmund Burke said this so eloquently, 300 years ago, I think it was. All that's necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And the more we shake our heads and say this is terrible, someone ought to do something about it, you're not going to get anywhere by shaking your heads and agreeing that it's all bad and wrong. We've got to somehow fight against it. And I know when I go to Canada, and I'll be up there in October doing some meetings, and if you are in the British Columbia area there, I'm going to be in Victoria, I'm going to be in Surrey, Friday and Saturday. I think it's the 18th and the 19th. And we're putting out information about the locations there. If you don't have our newsletter coming to you and you want to be informed and you want to be equipped, I encourage you to go to our website, fortressoffaith.com, and sign up. Also, give us a call if you want to, if you can't find the information online, and get on our newsletter. And we want to be a voice for freedom up in Canada, and it's going to take some organization to do that. All right, well, folks, that's going to be it for today, and for the week. Join us again next week at the Corner of Truth and Courage. God bless you.